Good morning, everybody. Carmen here. And for this week's How Do I, we are going to talk about embroidering on stretchy materials, these knit materials, right? Most of our t-shirts are considered a knit because they stretch, which is really different than a woven fabric. Woven fabrics are going to be like our cotton quilting fabrics, those sorts of things. But these knit fabrics can sometimes prove to be a little challenging when embroidering. And so today, I'm going to take you through the process. You can see here I have a fun sort of like Laverne and Shirley here, but El Laponte, right? A fun t-shirt that I have embroidered on. And the t-shirts that we're using today, the tank tops and t-shirts, they're all the ones that have this little bit of ribbing, because a lot of the t-shirts that I'm finding out there that are sort of trendy right now have a lot of ribbing in them. And sometimes, I know people get worried about, well, what's gonna happen if I embroider the ribbing? Like, how am I going to make this work? Because we all have seen embroideries on knits that have gone terribly wrong. So we're going to talk about some of the things to do that will make it be more successful for you. So first, you can see I'm sort of set up here, and I have thread, I have stabilizer, I have my beautiful embroidery machine, and so we're just going to sort of go step by step. So the first thing is you would pick a garment that you want to sew, right? Whether that be, I find it's really fun to just, of course you can make your own t-shirt, but it's also really fun to just embroider on t-shirts. And if you've never done this before, you can always just buy, a t-shirt at Goodwill or something. It's a great way to test. Super easy to grab some different, fun things to try embroidering on. If you're newer to embroidery, going to Goodwill and grabbing different fabrics of different ready-mades and then embroidering on them and seeing what works well and what doesn't work well might be a helpful way for you to sort of figure out some of the tips and tricks, right? And of course, you can also watch all of the fun YouTube videos and things that are out there or come into Inequality Sewing Storm. We're also always happy to help you if you have a project that you're not so sure about. You can just bring it in and somebody in the store can give you some tips. So the first thing that I would do whenever I'm going to embroider on a knit is I'm gonna want to add some power mesh or no-show mesh fusible. So no-show mesh is what it used to be called. And then they have improved it and it's now been replaced by power mesh. And this is a product from Floriani. And you can see that it actually comes in 3 different colors. And so there is this beige color, there's black, and then there is white. And these different colors have different purposes, right? So the first thing, and then it also comes in fusible and non-fusible. I use the fusible most of the time because I just find that when you can fuse your first layer of stabilizer to the fabric, it really just works better. So we're gonna fuse some of this direct to the fabric. Now let's just talk about the colors. As you might imagine, if you are working on black fabric, using black stabilizer is just going to look better in the finished product, right? Because you're not gonna have a color change. Also, if for some reason a little stabilizer wants to poke through anywhere, it's all black, right? So that's when you would use black, is whenever you're doing really dark projects, like if you're doing a black, a dark navy, those sorts of things, black is great. If you're ever using white or cream, this beige color tends to work a bit better because you don't see it as much through. White can be challenging. And then white is just an all-around stabilizer. Most of the stabilizers that most of us use are white, right? But it's nice to have the variety of colors in case you run into something. You sort of know that there are options out there. So we are going to use what I had opened already here in the store was, where'd I put it? It's right in front of me. I had moved it around. Is a roll of this power mesh that is fusible and it is beige. So I was like, beige will work great. It's going on a t-shirt. And it's sort of a brown colored t-shirt or tank top really. So this will be fine. So you can tell which side is fusible because it is shiny. And a lot of times when we get these stabilizers home, we lose the packaging, we don't know what they are anymore. But this one, you can always tell if it's a shiny side, that usually means it's fusible. So this is the fusible side, this is the not fusible side. So you're gonna cut a piece to about the size of your design. Pre-planning what your design is going to be can be helpful because then you know how much stabilizer you need. And then you are simply going to cut it, you're gonna lay it down here, and then you would just iron it down. Now, if you just iron it down enough that it's tacked on there, it's not peeling up, that is going to be great. If you really iron it a ton, like you won't be able to move it at all. And sometimes I like to, when I'm all done, trim more of my stabilizer away, and even the fusible ones you can peel up a little bit, as long as you haven't just like ironed and ironed and ironed and ironed and ironed and ironed, if you know what I mean. You want to just iron it enough that it's fusible and it's not going anywhere, but not so much that it's like permanent. And most of these fusible stabilizers, if you iron them for a few seconds, they are semi-permanent, meaning you can move them around after you're done embroidering. And then if you iron them for longer, like 5-10 seconds, they are permanent. And that's true of most of Floriani Stabilizer's lines. And it's sort of a good pro tip, because a lot of times we want it to be real stable while we're embroidering, but then once we're done, we want to like remove as much stabilizer as we can, right? So that it's not left in totally in the entire garment, depending on what the design is like. So that's my tip on fusible stabilizers. We're going to fuse this on. And the reason why you use a fusible stabilizer is, I once heard an educator share that what she feels like this stabilizer does is it turns this knit into a woven. Meaning now this fabric that is all stretchy is going to behave more, because you can even just see the difference here, right? If I pull on this fabric right here without stabilizer, it really moves. And imagine if this was pulled like this and you embroidered and then you let go, what's gonna happen? It's gonna be a big puckery mess. So this, you can see here when I start pulling, see how it's not pulling the fabric. So it's helped keeping that weave of all of that knit just totally together, so you can embroider on it and it can stay nice and flat. So this is the first thing I would do. I would add that. Okay, next there are a couple of different methods. You can just put your whole project in a hoop and you can gently hoop it. Now, if you were to do that, you wouldn't want to stretch it, right? If you were to pull this thing and hoop it like this, then when you were done, it would pop back and it would just be a big puckery mess. The method that I'm going to use today is actually using Perfect Stick, and either way are fine. It's really up to you. I just like the Perfect Stick method because I find it a bit safer for me, but some people prefer to hoop it, which is totally okay. So here I have Perfect Stick, and Perfect Stick is this stabilizer right here, and I think, let's read the package. I have the package right here. Yeah, it's Perfect Stick Cutaway here, and this is what it looks like, also from Floriani. Oh, I'm gonna lose my stabilizer. Oh, not quite. I almost knocked it all off the end of the table there. Would have been a nice thud. So here, one side is shiny. It's like a shiny paper side, and one side is the stabilizer. Okay, and this is the way Perfect Stick works is I already cut some off here, and so I have it here, and then I'm gonna hoop it like this. And I think my hoop's a little bit too tight, so I'm gonna loosen it here. I didn't actually test it ahead of time, and you want to be on a flat surface, like if you have a cutting table, or like right now I'm on a sewing cabinet, and then you're just going to pop this all in there. So we're hooping that Perfect Stick. Make sure it's nice and snug, just like you would normal fabric. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to grab my scissors, and I'm going to score this. So I'm just going to go down this way, and then like this, and then just grab the edge here and pull it up. So you want that shiny side up. I'm not gonna lie that sometimes I've accidentally done it the other way, and then I've gotten to this point and been like, oh, it's upside down. That's not gonna work. And then you're just gonna peel all of this paper away. And some people will use a pin to score it. I just tend to use scissors, and it works pretty well for me. And then you just sort of grab the big chunk, go to the edges there, and then you just throw this paper away. And then we are going to line up where we want to embroider this. Now there are some different tools out there that can make placement for t-shirts and things helpful. There is this ruler that's actually designed for heat transfer vinyl, but sometimes it can be helpful if you want to try to figure out the center point, right, on your t-shirt and measure a little bit, because it has these curves. This can be sort of a helpful ruler. She has all the instructions here actually how to use it if you are doing like vinyl t-shirts and things. It's a really helpful ruler designed by Hope Yoder, but it has the center line. It sort of gives you some nice markings. This can be helpful. I often will do something where if I've decided that my center line, I want my center line to be marked off of this point here on the tank top, right? Because I'm trying to do something right there. What I might do is just mark where where I want my center to be, so then I can line it up. It really depends on you and what you're doing, right, as to what sort of lines you're going to draw on here. But maybe I just want to do a little marking like that to give me sort of an idea of what I'm trying to line up against. Now, every question?
I mean, what did you draw on that with? That's not a regular marker.
No, yes, this is a Choco. It is a Choco chalk pen roller, but I like it because like it does a really straight line. It's just chalk, so you can brush it off, but it has this little like wheel in here, and so it does a really nice straight line. It's easy. It doesn't like, I don't know, so you know how some markers sometimes, like the chalk ones that are just a pencil, like they sort of go, this guy just rolls really smoothly. And I love gray because gray tends to work light, dark, most of the different colors, and you can get away with just having one, because I don't know about you, but I have tons of different marking utensils or tools, but I tend to misplace them in things, and it's handy to have one that you're like, I always know where this one is. And so that's what I used to mark with. Okay, then we're gonna lay this guy into our hoop. So t-shirts can be a bit tricky because you've got all this fabric, right? Now, if you have a multi-needle machine, a machine that's not a flatbed, and you can hoop it so it can just hang, that is super brilliant and pretty amazing if you know you're somebody who's like, actually, I want to start a business and I'm going to do a ton of t-shirts and a ton of hats and things. That's really where having a multi-needle machine is really helpful, because instead of having a flatbed the way that the machine I'm going to use today is, it has this tube. It's tubular, right? And so the hoop just goes basically, when you're embroidering it, the tube goes basically in here and your hoop goes there and the fabric can just hang down. Pretty slick. But instead, we are on a flatbed, so we are going to have to line this up, and I'm just going to sort of, a lot of times I like to use the markers on my hoop, right? You have a center marker here and a center marker here, and I will use it to eyeball. My machine has other tools that I will show you for making sure you have it precisely positioned, but I always start with sort of trying to get it lined up. And so since I was using my center point here as the center of this, I'm going to just sort of roughly line that up there and roughly line this up here so it's in the center, and then I'm going to press it down. And you don't want it to be puckered, right? You want it to be like flat and gentle. You don't want to have pulled on it, right? We talked about that before. You want to be really gentle with it. And then I will often then take I'll come back this way just because my stuff is over here. I'm going to take some pink tape here, and I'm using the Floriani Embroidery Perfection tape. And I like that it's pink because it's clear that it belongs in my sewing room. And I am going to get this sort of pinned away so that way I don't accidentally grab it. How many of you have been rushing and not pinned your stuff, and then all of a sudden this piece is like over here getting embroidered on, or it's shoved, somehow it slid under your hoop and now you've got all these layers and it's a big mess? So I have 100% done that, because for those of you who've watched me, I tend to cut corners, right? Like, I'm always going really fast. I just want to get her done. And sometimes I don't follow the rules, but there's certain rules that are good to follow because they're going to help you prevent some issues. So I would, tape down anything that you think might get in your way or could get caught by your embroidery foot. So we've got this in here. We have that there. Now we are ready to go get our design and line it up in our machine. So I'm going to put my hoop on here, and we're actually not done stabilizing it. We're going to probably do 2 more stabilization techniques with this, but we are first going to pick where our design is, get that on there, all of that good stuff. So I am just going to, mostly what I've been doing here, I'm going to show you a fun t-shirt here that has some words and stuff on it. And so we're just going to write love right here, right? Because that would be sort of cute. It could be fun to put someone's name. You could, like you earlier there, I just put a big letter. I don't know why, something about this tank top with the pink and this color, it just made me think of like putting a big letter, sort of a retro-y fun thing, which is why I put that on there. But our most embroidery machines come with a lot of embroidery designs built in, and a lot of different fonts and monograms. And they can really be a fun thing and a simple thing to do to customize something for someone, or to spice something up or make a theme right? Like maybe you and your friends are all doing something and you want everyone to have a matching t-shirt and you can all have it say whatever your slogan is. Maybe you're having a girlfriend's weekend and you've made a slogan for the weekend and you can put it on your t-shirts, or any of those things. There's lots of fun things, or an initial, all sorts of fun stuff, or just a fun phrase, right? There's tons of fun phrases. And often when I'm doing things like t-shirts, I will go to Pinterest and just look up ideas because there's lots of fun ones out there. Okay, so we're just gonna go here and grab some lettering. I'm just gonna grab this font here, and I think I'm just gonna do it all lowercase. So I'm gonna go to lowercase there, and I'm just going to type L-O-V-E, love, and we're just gonna go set, and I can see it here. Now this machine has some unique things that can be helpful for placement. Most every machine, when you go to embroidery, is going to have a feature like this where we could then trace where the design is. And some machines will trace it. Some you can have the center point. This machine allows you to like hit every sort of angle and you can see where the little cross is compared to where the word is going to be, right? But this machine also has some other cool features. One would be it has this projector feature that is going to project my letters onto it. So I can see exactly like, oh, boom, how's that going to look? Does that look like it's lined up where I wanted it? You know, if that's the center point, you know, am I good with where that is? Do I want to move it a little bit? If I wanted to move it, I would just nestle it, just tap it over a little bit, and then it would move, and then it would update my new position for me. So that's a cool feature that this machine has. Another cool feature that this machine has is a background scan. So if I hit scan, it wants me to line this guy up so it knows where we're starting from. We'll line that guy up. We'll say okay. And it's first going to recognize this. Yep, great. It's going to check that. It's going to check a couple things. So this machine actually has a camera in the head of the machine. It's going here. Okay, great. Now it's going to, I was supposed to remove the sticker. If I follow the instructions, it did tell me to remove the sticker. I just didn't read the instructions. And it's scanning the whole thing here. And then you can see now it's showing me in a different way that there is my shirt and there is the design on there. So two really great ways that this machine has to just show me really quickly, like, is it where I want it, right? Okay, so now this stitch up here, this machine is telling me that it is going to be 1,200 stitches. Okay, so it's not super dense. It's only going to take 2 minutes to do this whole design. It's not a really dense design. So now if I'm embroidering on knits, if I am using a design, like Floriani recommends that if it's a design that has more than 8,000 stitches, that would be considered a dense design. And then you would want to not only have the stabilization we have here, but then also, when you start embroidering, float a piece of tearaway stabilizer underneath. And when I say float, we're gonna do that. This design might not really need it, but we're gonna pretend like it was thicker, with a denser design. And float just means you're just going to lay it underneath there like that. So you're just gonna sort of line it up so it's about underneath the edge of the hoop. You can see it's pretty much lined up underneath my hoop. And I'm just going to float it underneath there like that. So then that way it's adding another layer of stabilization. And then the final piece of stabilization we're gonna wanna add is we are going to use a topper. And the reason why you use a topper is because, particularly when you have a little ribbed knit like this, you don't want your design to get like lost in the knit, if that makes sense. Sort of similar to like when you're doing a terry cloth towel, this topper is going to allow for that embroidered design to stay on the top of your fabric. So that way it just sits really nicely. So this is really a lot more than I need because that design is small. So I'm gonna cut this. And this is called, the one I'm using, it comes in a roll like this, and it's Floriani's water-soluble topping. And it's really easy, it tears away. And then like this one over here, like I already tore it away, but I haven't washed it yet. And so when the first time you wash it, it will all come out, but it's just there to keep the designs on top. Okay, and then let's just cut this because maybe a little bit bigger than that. If it's too small, I find that, so sometimes with stabilizers, we want to be frugal, right? So I find sometimes if it's too small, like this actually might be fine for this, I'm gonna tape it down. But if it's too small and you don't tape it down, this will happen where it just gets all like blobbed up in there, and then it doesn't work very well. So, and no, I've never done that. Oh yes, I have. 100% used too small of a piece, it was a scrap, and then didn't tape it because I was in a rush and thought I could just hold it with my fingers. And in fact, not. So I'm gonna tape this down as well, just so, you know, just so it is tacked down and it's not gonna go anywhere. And I didn't really, this one didn't seem to really hook down there. Let's actually get it so it's on the fabric. There we go. So you want that to be decently flat. And if you wanted to make sure, yet again, that we were in the right spot, I could turn my projector back on this machine and it will show me right where the design's gonna be. Boom, right there. So yeah, so this is why you test it. So it is probably gonna be okay, but I did not center that. It might have been better for me to put this on when I had that projected, so I knew where it was going to be, so it was more in the center. But this tape is definitely reusable, and so if you're working on a couple projects, you can just keep using it. A lot of times I'll stick it on my machine until it's not tacky anymore. Okay, so that is ready to go, and then we would just lower our presser foot. Oh, let's see, say okay, okay, get to embroidery, lower my presser foot, and then I'm just going to start embroidering. And so while it's embroidering, I'm hoping that we'll see if it's not too loud here. I want to talk a little bit about the thread that I chose. So I chose a 60 weight embroidery thread. So 60 weight is, Embellish makes a line of embroidery thread called Flawless. And a 60 weight is a finer weight embroidery thread. And I find that when I'm doing things on knits, or anytime I'm doing fine lettering, the Flawless embroidery thread just works better because you can see everything. And then sometimes with knits, I don't, like with this design here, I didn't want it to be like a really crazy dense design, so I purposely used a lighter weight thread. And this Flawless embroidery thread, it's made by R&K, but it's under their Embellish line. So they're the same manufacturers of the Floriani thread, and it looks like this spool looks smaller than like a normal, like here's, I guess this is sort of an empty one, but it looks like it has less thread on it, but it doesn't. It actually has just as much thread on it as a full Floriani spool. It's just that since it's a lighter weight, since it is 60 weight instead of 40 weight, most of the Floriani embroidery thread is 40 weight, and 40 weight is going to be a little bit heavier. It just looks like it's less on the spool, but it's the same amount. And then you can also get them in all of these different colors. We have them in the stores as single spools, or on the website, we do have them as different like color sets where you get like a whole set of them, but they do a really nice job with lettering anytime it's small. So that guy is embroidering. So I have another one here that I thought we would take apart. This guy's just about done. I purposely did a short one so that way one has the E. So this guy here, we are all done with, okay? So we're gonna start by taking our tape off, and if you wanted to save it, like I said, you can see here, I went a little crazy on my tape. That's a lot of tape, but that's okay. All right, so we're gonna put this here, and put this here, and then this is just that wash away, right? So it's all gonna wash away, and you can just pick it out right now. You might have, like I see a little thread here that I wanna cut. Now this machine has done some really nice things for us. For those of you who don't have like this machine or a similar one, you'll notice that there's no jump stitches. So a lot of times with lettering, there would be big jump stitches here or jump stitches, but this machine actually cuts those jump stitches for me. So I just have my couple of tail stitches to cut. So that is a really nice feature. It's, it makes it pretty fast if you don't have to cut your jump stitches. So that's sort of awesome. And then we are just gonna pull this guy up here. I might just take the whole thing out of my hoop because I've got a lot going on here, right? You've got a lot of different stabilizer, right? We've got that tear away that I added, and you're just gonna tear that. So I find I do this sort of in layers, right? I do that top one, I take off this bottom one, this tearaway here. And of course, you can really get in there and get all fussy and get all of this out, right? For essence, because of time, I'm not gonna do that, but you can get in and just tear away all of those pieces. A lot of times, this is where I might use a weeding tool or the tips of my scissors to get in there and pull all those pieces out. That's the beauty of tearaway. It's really easy. You just go in and tear them out. And then here, this is, let's get this hoop out of the way. Set it over here. Get my refuse over here as well. And then this, we're just going to, since this is a cutaway, I am just going to cut. Now the thing with cutting is I try to turn it like this so I don't accidentally do one of these where like I'm cutting this way and all of a sudden I'm cutting my fabric. Does that make sense? So I like to cut from this side so I can see where my fabric is, because I wouldn't want to like cut a big hole in my fabric. See, most of the things that you could do wrong, I've done them, so don't feel bad when you're doing things at home and you run into an error, because it happens to all of us. We get busy, we're thinking about all the other things, and then this is what I was talking about with this. You see, since I didn't fuse this down super hard, like really for a long time, I can now just go in and trim. Since this is just a cutaway, I can go trim all of this away, right? And see it right there. I almost did it, you guys. I almost cut the fabric. Did anyone else notice that? Okay, so you can go around and trim all of this excess fabric, not fabric, but all this excess stabilizer away, so then you don't have it. Another thing you can do once you've trimmed all of this away, if let's say you really want this to be super smooth, is you can actually take a piece of Dreamweave, once you've trimmed this, and just make it exactly the size of this and fuse it on, so then it's just a soft piece of fabric on the back instead of having the lettering. But then, so we flip this over and you can see here's another sort of fun thing here that I put on this shirt. And you can see I put Live, Laugh, Love, and this is just like a regular t-shirt. But I think you can have a lot of fun with lettering and throwing different lettering on to lots of different shirts. So there's that one, and then this guy we would just do the same thing with, and he is all done. You can see there, love is gonna be really cute on the corner of this shirt. So that, I think, is everything. The only other thing I didn't talk about was needles. And your needle you mostly are just gonna use a standard embroidery needle because a standard embroidery needle is sort of in between a universal and a ballpoint, so it's gonna have the right tip for you. And generally speaking, you don't need to use a specialty needle on knits. Sometimes if you're gonna do a metallic thread or you have something else that you're doing, then maybe you would choose a different needle because of that. But in general, you're just gonna use a standard embroidery needle. So I hope that this was helpful. I think that I covered everything here. So have fun. We'd love to see your projects. If you embroider something on knit, we'd love to see it on our Facebook page or our Instagram page. Show us those photos, or you can send them to marketing@qualitysewing.com because we'd love to see what you're doing. So have a great day, and we'll see you back here next Tuesday at 10 a.m.